Welcome to the Upward Running Podcast, where faith fuels your fitness journey.
Welcome back to the Upward Running Podcast. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail where you can, in turn, inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. Well, I am your running host, Dean Thompson, and this week I'm going to come to you with a whole different kind of vibe here. This is Upward's own Travis Vaughn, an avid and talented runner in his own right. And we've got some announcements and a discussion that I think is going to be eye-opening as kind of maybe one era closes and a new one dawns, and we'll talk all about all of that in just a few minutes. How's it going, Travis?
It's going good. Yesterday was my 45th birthday, and
all right, happy birthday!
Yeah, I had the day off. We live in South Carolina. I know you guys broadcast from Georgia, northern Georgia most of the time, but we live in upstate South Carolina in Spartanburg, and so me and my wife and daughter and one of her friends went up towards the Boone area to go find some snow and hang out a little bit there yesterday afternoon. We used to get snow when I grew up in this area, but now, for whatever reason, it never does. Now they're talking about we might get some next weekend, but
that's true.
It's we as the Vaughn family, we get excited about snow, so we went and tried to go find some yesterday afternoon.
Snow is something to get excited about. You know, just a couple of weeks ago, I was down in Florida where it was almost 80 degrees, and then I wake up this morning and it's like 19. It's just been, it's been up and down and up and down. And the problem with that for me is that I can never get used to being cold unless if it stays cold for a couple of weeks at a time, you kind of get used to it. Mm-hmm. But when it gets warm and then it gets cold and it gets warm and it gets cold, it's really hard to get yourself used to it. So I'm freezing all the time. What about you?
No, I'm with you that, it's been up and down as far as the temperatures go. But the one thing about cold, you can always put more clothes on and get warmed up into it. And so I think that's a little easier than if you, like in December, when it had been cooler here, I went for my wedding anniversary to Mexico and ran there in Mexico. And that was a very different feeling for the intense humidity and heat that I suddenly was there. So I think it's easier to put more clothes on and adapt as it relates to that. On this, you were in Florida. Tell everybody why you were in Florida. I think that's important.
Well, I think I told that story last week, right? I was down there running the USATF National Club Cross Country Championships and just had a weird race. But I was still able to finish 16th in the country for over 60-year-olds. So there's some of the best runners in the country that show up for that race. So, it's something to feel good about.
Yeah.
I wish I'd have done better. If I had not been for my calf acting up on me, I think I would have been significantly better than that. But, we got to take what we get.
That's right. It was interesting to hear that story. And I noted on the Kinda Fast podcast that's out there currently this week as we're recording, the week of January 19th, that the USA team was down a runner and they should just came to you, Dean, and say, hey, put this USA jersey on, let's go.
Yeah, I could have stayed with him for the first 200 meters, maybe. Oh, man. So what are you doing for your running right now? How's it going?
Yeah, I ran the Columbus Marathon back in October. I've been working towards a goal of running a Boston qualifying time for 7 years, and I was able to achieve that. So I kind of went into a maintenance mode once I recovered from the race into to the end of the year. So I'm just getting started back on a half marathon plan that'll take me to a race that is still to be determined in April or May of this year. So the early weeks of that would be the same whether the race was in April or in May at this point. So just doing some base building of the new half marathon training block.
All right. Well, I just turned 60, and so there's a website, or used to be a website, with all the state records by age group on it. And, I've got my name on there in a few places, but I when you turn 60, you get into a new age group. And so, but the website's not there anymore. But I thought, well, I'm going to go back to the Wayback Machine and see if I can find it. Well, I found an old version of it. And so now I have found out what all the state records are for the 60 plus or 60 to 64 age group. Now I'm going to be on a rampage. I'm going to run all the distances this year. Matter of fact, I may start with a marathon in a couple of weeks. Because the record's 3:10, and I feel like I could run 3:10 even if I haven't been really specifically marathon training. So I may try that one first.
You jumped into one maybe a year or a year and a half ago where you hadn't even planned until that weekend and ran about 3 flat, didn't you?
I think it was 3:05. Yeah. I think I could do that. So we'll see. But I'm busy decreasing my mileage this year. So I averaged about 60 miles a week last year. I'm going to cut that back down to about 50 miles a week this year. Just try to run a little shorter and faster and work on some shorter, faster stuff. So hopefully that goes well. We'll see.
I did that in 2025. I had most up weeks I'd run more like 55-ish a week, and I kept getting injured. And so I brought that back to about 45 per week and had a successful 2025 for me, pulling back, still periodizing the training with long runs and short runs and fast runs and recovery runs and all those things in there, but just pulling back on the volume a little bit, and it seemed to really help me last year.
Well, that's good to hear. Maybe I'll have some of the same success.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get to our important discussion, I just thought we'd just talk about some fun things for a few minutes here. So I thought about this question. What is your favorite reason to run, or the reason to be a runner, maybe?
Yeah, for me, it is about chasing a goal that is unique to me. So, I kind of look at it in different buckets. I feel like I want to be the best father and husband I can be, and there's time dedicated to that. I want to be the best employee and worker that I can for Upward Sports, and I have time dedicated to that. I do things with the church that I go to, and so I'm involved with small groups and a workout class and, all the other normal activities at the church, and so I have time dedicated to that. For me, running is my thing. It's the thing that I do by myself that doesn't really impact anyone else. It doesn't have there's no reason that I have to do it, but I choose to do it, and I choose to chase after a goal to see how fast I can go or what new achievement I can obtain through this thing. And it keeps my mind motivated and it keeps me going. So for me, it's more about like, what is unique about me? For me, that is running at this point. And so that's why I like to do that. How about you?
Cool. That's pretty cool. Well, I like the feeling of freedom and there's just the opportunity to clear my head. There's something just mind clearing about going out for a run, no matter what kind of run it is. It's even if whether you're really, really focused on trying to execute a workout or you're just out there just for an easy few miles, there's something clearing about that. And I remember when I was young, this is a different thing for me, because when I was young, if what I'm doing is over to the left and what you're doing is over to the right, mine was way further over to the right. At one point in time in my life, when I was young, when I was in high school, they interviewed me, the newspaper did, and they asked me why I run. And I told them to win. And my mother did not like that answer at all. She wanted me to say something, special, but my attitude back then was I run because I like winning, and that's what I try to do whenever I go run. And I thought that was funny because she didn't appreciate my answer. She was like, couldn't you say that you enjoy it, or at least I do it for the competition, not to win?
Well, I would have said the same thing as a young runner. I didn't start to really love the sport until the last 7 or so years of my life. I ran in high school, I was late to the game in high school, didn't run for the majority of it, and then started doing it, was suddenly really good at it, and it paid for my college eventually and ran in college. But I did it because I was good at it, and I liked the accolades that came with it.
Yeah.
I don't know that I achieved all the same accolades that you did, but they were good enough to pay for school and run on some fast teams and that kind of thing. So, fast forward to me doing it in my 30s at that point. That's when I really started to love the sport. And you talk about, doing it because helps clear your mind, and it does that for me too. But I also ideate and think about things when I'm out there that for some reason those things can be floating in your head and you can't quite put them together when you're at work. And then you go out for a run and you start putting them together. I can remember my old boss here, Nathan. He used to say, like, when you walk into my office and you go, "Hey, I was thinking on my run this morning," he's like, "Okay, let me get a piece of paper. I got to take this down," because normally it was something that we'd been working on or I'd been thinking about towards that. So you definitely get all those benefits from running as well.
For sure. What about your absolute favorite running memory? Do you have one of those?
It's hard to break up the different eras in my life that I was just talking about. So
Yeah.
can I give you two?
Oh,
So
sure.
In my younger life, as a high school runner, we had a very, very good high school team. 5 of us went on to run in college eventually, not all at the same time. There was a couple of them that were younger than me that eventually went to run on in college, but very good runners off of that team. And we'd run all season, hadn't lost a single time. And at the county championships, which is 3 weeks prior to state, I tore my hip flexor tendon off of the hip bone, like full rupture, big time deal. Passed out twice that day, just from like at the finish line. I passed out, and I passed out when they were trying to move me around in the hospital, trying to diagnose it. I remember that one specifically because it was stars and I was falling, right? I was going down. And so I still ran the race 3 weeks later in the state championship. I was on crutches until that week, and then ran in the race and finished 16th in the state, as opposed to the, top 3 or 4 that I would have finished otherwise before the injury. And we lost in a tiebreaker on the 6th runner to another team who had a great day. We had a mediocre day, and then you take my moving of a position, and we lost that race. I went to Wade Hampton High School, if anybody's wondering. Daniel High School, right near Clemson, is the one that beat us. And so my favorite memory actually comes from the springtime in the track. Only 4 runners from the upper state of South Carolina in the 2-mile gets to go on to state. You have 4 runners from the lower state, 4 runners from the upper state that get to run to state, in state. And a bunch of Daniel runners and a bunch of Wade Hampton runners in that upper state final. And we shut them out of even going to state. Like, none of their runners made it to state.
Oh,
and
wow.
we went on to finish 1, 2, and 4 individually in the 2-mile in the track season. So that was a joyous time for Matt and Vince and I, who had the heartbreak of the cross country season in the fall, only to avenge that to a degree in the spring.
Mm. And then I guess your second one is the recent one.
Yeah. The other one, and I'll keep that one short. I've been working for a long time towards this Boston qualifying time.
Yeah.
I thought it would have come a whole lot easier to me. It hadn't, injuries along the way, and, circumstances of the marathon where you can only run it so many times and you try to get in shape and all that. It just hadn't come together. But back in October, was able to run on a very rainy, windy day in Columbus, Ohio, and get that time that's 7 minutes under the qualifying time for my age group. Was a joyous time, and my wife and daughter were there to celebrate with me, and so that'll be a memory I will always have there.
Yeah. I remember hearing that from you for the first time. Hearing you talk about it for the first time, you could hear it in your voice. That's a relief and a being proud all at the same time.
Absolutely. How about you?
I think for me, this might be a surprise because my favorite running memory really isn't about me. I think when I really think about it, what was my favorite thing? And I think it was this. Back when we did the first Couch to Marathon program, we finished at the Disney World Marathon that year, and we had close to 200 people running at the Disney World Marathon. And we had several that were near the back of the pack. there was a sweeper, the balloon lady they called her, that was behind the last runner, and if you got passed by the balloon ladies, you had to drop out, get on a bus, and ride back to the finish line. And so we had one of our guys we knew he was close to the balloon ladies, and we knew what his he got a split at like 22 miles or something, and we just kept watching for him. And we knew what he had on, so we knew what to look for. And it was Shannon Coker, and I remember watching for him and just praying that he was going to turn that corner any minute now, because the time was getting really, really close. And sure enough, just under the finishing time, here he comes in his shirt that we knew he was wearing. And man, it was so much fun to see him finish, because his wife was there. She was worried about him, and we were worried for her because she was worried about him. And just seeing him, that was a pretty special time. I remember that. That 20 to 30 minutes of waiting, that last 20 to 30 minutes felt like it was 3 hours. And then I guess
I'm sure of it. Like you have, it's almost like any other standard, though. You know, if you're trying to get a Boston qualifying time and you're wondering whether the person you're watching is going to get it, or an Olympic trials qualifying time or whatever. In this case, it was under the time that still qualifies to finish the marathon. I'm sure that was an interesting time for everyone involved there watching that one.
What was crazy is we thought he finished just under the time, but we still had 2 or 3 more people that finished after that. So, and if for me personally, it's hard to beat my state championship in cross country my senior year of high school. But I tell you, I thought about this afterwards just a little while ago. I was thinking about, it was 3 or 4 years ago. It was 4 or 5 years ago. I went to Ames, Iowa, and I ran 4 different races on 4 days in the USATF National Championships on the track. And I won 4 medals. I was in the top 3 places in all 3 of those races, and all 4 of those races, rather. That was a more recent, pretty proud thing to have done. I remember now, as I look back on it, when I did it, it didn't seem like it was, it is. When you do it, it doesn't seem like it's all that special. And you look back on it, you go, whoa, that was pretty impressive.
that is an amazing accomplishment for sure.
So if you could run any race in the world or event in the world, what would it be?
I think that for me, it would be the London Marathon, only because I like the idea of doing all the majors at some point in time before I hang up the running shoes. And it's so hard to get in, it's like 0.1% chance or something. I think they turned away 1 million people who registered last year that didn't get into the race. So, it seems like amazing. That's the crown jewel of the majors. And so I would take London as my choice there.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I would love to do the 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. I just think that would be a blast to do. Would it be exhausting? Oh yeah, but it would be totally worth it. I'd love to try that. So
I've heard the problem is that with Mitchell, that, hey, if anybody wants to step up and pay for it, you'd be glad to do it. So let's just call it out again. If anybody wants to pay for Dean to do the 7 marathons on 7 days on 7 continents, he'd be very happy to do that on your behalf. Yeah.
And I think it's only like $60,000. So it's crazy. People, I guess that's people with a lot of money. Well, we're going to talk about the direction of Upward Running and what it's going to take in the future here in just a little while. But how are things currently at Upward Running?
I think that we have some positive momentum going in several different places right now. We had almost 250 people sign up for the Couch to Marathon program that just kicked off. Claire and I did the kickoff call for that recently, and had some great engagement with people, both that were there live and that have watched the recording thereafter. We currently have about 1,000 Upward Running members, either in a already paying type situation or trying us out here at the beginning of the year on a trialing basis. to kind of see if this is something that is the lifestyle and discipline that they plan to do in 2026, as so many other people do at the beginning of the year here. And so there are some places that there will be some adjustments and changes moving forward, but we are trying to do the best we can for the people that are involved with the Upward Running and Run Club places there, both in the individual model, which is where my mind naturally goes to on these things, but also in the church model as well, which has churches all over the country doing this. Now, it's still early on the church model basis here. I'm guessing we've had somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 different church programs that have run since we launched it under the Upward Running name, and a good number of other ones planned for 2026. But we really need to go out to our Upward sports partners, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 to 1,600 churches out there that are running Upward Sports, and really present them that this adult offering is available to them, and it's quite easy to get off of the ground, and you can make an impact in your community with those who want to do a 5K challenge in the future. And so that's where the goals would be moving forward, is to both make a larger impact on the individual model by providing more curriculum and more chances for people to interact with each other in the future. And then on the church model, present those to the Upward Sports partners out there, and tell others who aren't currently Upward Sports partners that this could be a great way to start sports ministry at your church.
And a lot of that can come through the app, right? I mean, we continue to add new things to the app regularly. There seems like there's an update every week or two. Mm-hmm. And so that continues to get better too, right? So if we've got some folks maybe listening that tried out the app, 6 or 8 months ago, it's a whole different thing now. So you might want to give it another shot, right?
Far more stable than it was. It's one of these things that if you wait to release it until it's perfect, you'll never release it. Like that's just kind of how you look at it from an IT standpoint. And so we got it as good as we could when we initially released it. And we, sorry to say, in some places worked the bugs out with our individuals as we were in the early days. But seems like it's far better now. It'll continue to get better. We have a great team working on it currently today. And now I think you get into continuous improvement activities. So if the foundation is built today for what we basically want to do, and we can talk about some of the things that is planned as we move through the conversation, but if the foundation is there, then we can take the feedback from our current individuals in there and see where we can make enhancements, or just the ideas of the things that I would say is on a backlog today, understand what those are, and start to make this more of a feature-rich app than it even is today. So I'm excited about some of those things there.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Well, I'd say most people listening to this know that Mitchell Hollis has left Upward Running. You may have seen that he's starting a new ministry, and it's called Lamppost Ministries. And I'm sure that's an extension of we've talked about 100 times, it seems like, on the podcast about how God lights up one light over here. You go to that light, and then he lights up one somewhere else, and you follow it there. And I'm sure that's what this is all about. And I just want to say publicly, I really thoroughly enjoyed the, 290 or so episodes that Mitchell and I did together. I've grown in my faith as a result of all of the things that we did and all of those studies, probably more through the studying for those particular things than actually the actual podcasts. But I just want to, again, formally say thank you to Mitchell, for all that we've gone through together. We've had some low points along the way, back during the pandemic, as a group now, not personally, not between us personally, but as a group, we went through some really, really rough times. But we've had a lot more high points than low points. And probably the most important thing are those messages from people who have reached out to us and said, hey, as a result of the things you guys are doing, I now have a relationship with Christ that I didn't have before. Nothing could be more important to us. And we, Mitchell and I always joked, we reasoned that if God could use us to do that, he can use anybody to do almost anything. So, and I thank God for the whole Hollis family, because when you get Mitchell, you get Holly, you get Lane, you get Landon, and now you get Christian, Lane's wife. They're a solid, faithful family. I appreciate them. There have been a lot of areas where I've been influenced by them. Hopefully I've had an influence on them as well. And one of my favorite things that's influenced me is I'm a little bit better on a preparation standpoint than I used to be. Mitchell is one of those guys who, if you got something going on 2 months from now, he's probably ready for it today. I'll be ready for it the day before. And that's, I'm a little bit better. I'm not nearly as insane as he is, but I'm better. So I pray that Lamppost and Mitchell and those guys are successful in the things that they're doing. One of the things that I noticed, and you and I working a little bit more together since he's gone, is that you and Mitchell are a lot alike in at least one way. You know me, I tend to speak my mind. I don't do it as much on this podcast as I do in person, but I do have a tendency to say you don't have to wonder what I'm thinking, because I'll tell you what I'm thinking. And I used to make sure that everyone knew my opinion on everything. And that's why you don't see me on social media, because I'm afraid if I get in that habit again, I'll get myself in trouble because I can't behave myself. But anyway, Mitchell and I had some disagreements on a lot of things, but I always felt free to speak up. And in mine and your conversation, you're that way too. So I think we should all want personal transparency from people that we talk with. It's how we get better, right? We listen, and then we act on those things and take them to heart. And I appreciate that out of you in the way that you handle that as well.
We've had great.
Now, if we can just get our politicians to do the same thing, right?
Sure. I appreciate all the conversations we've ever had, and the directness, the frankness. There's no wondering where any of us sit on different things, but it's all done in like a good Christian manner that we want the best. I want the best for you. I think you want the best for me. Same thing.
100%.
Same thing with Mitchell. I got to take a moment since you talked about Mitchell and just say the same. I so appreciate Mitchell and Holly and the whole family and my interactions with them. I mean, the guy is just handles himself with great class, and I consider him a friend. And so he's will be missed around here. But the foundation that he and you as well have set here, I think will be seen for a long, long time. The fruits of that will be here for a long, long time. And so kind of think about this in the way that I think about Kaz McCaslin. So those that might not know, Kaz McCaslin started Upward Sports back in 1995. And he hasn't been with the company since 2018, but I sent him a text message last year when that we had someone on a podcast that really was talking about next level or next generation leadership. And what I wanted to tell Kaz was like, what you started back in 1995, who knows how many generations of that ministry will continue to go long after he's even not with us on earth anymore. And the impacts of Upward Sports and this as a ministry moving forward, all because he listened to God's call back, 30 years ago now. And so I think about the foundation that Mitchell started with Run for God, and now we get to use a lot of that at Upward Sports. Who knows what benefits will be seen moving forward for the kingdom, for the glory to God moving forward because of what he did when he responded to the call, 16 years ago or so on that. He may not have any direct relationship with what happens in the future moving forward as it relates to this running ministry. but there will be impacts, and all of that is because of the time and effort and experience that he put into the ministry during his time here. So I also very thankful for Mitchell, and appreciate all the interactions with you as well.
Well said. Well, how about this? It's a time for Dean's Thoughts, and that's a time when I share something I've written about the intersection between running and faith. I've shared parts of this story before, but I've never written it down. And so I'm going to share my testimony. And inside this story is an announcement. So it's called, Isn't It Great How God Works? Every runner knows the feeling of standing at a starting line, the anticipation, the nerves, and the faith that every step will take you somewhere meaningful. My race has been more than one of miles and medals. It's been a journey of trust, timing, and transformation. Upward running has been a profound blessing in my life and in the lives of thousands of others. As best as I can remember, I have never actually written down my story until now. I remember my first Run for God event like it was yesterday. A friend had registered for the Run for God half marathon, but an injury kept her from racing. So she asked if I wanted to run in her place. The first time I met Mitchell Hollis was when I approached him to see if I could take her spot. He graciously agreed. I ran the race and then caught up with him afterward to say how much I loved what he was doing through Run for God and that I would gladly help in any way if he ever needed help in the future. It felt like a divine appointment, honestly. More than a year later, Mitchell called and invited me to lunch where he shared his vision for a book filled with stories from runners across the country whose journeys were shaped by both faith and running. He wanted what he called a real runner to write 52 teaching stories about running to accompany the faith stories, and at that point, he had no idea whether I could even put two sentences together. Another thing he didn't know was that I had once considered studying sports journalism in college, so the chance to write was something I had quietly hoped for ever since. 3 decades after entering college, God opened the door for me to pursue a dream I thought had passed me by. Isn't it great how God works? I wrote those first 52 stories while still working full-time for a flooring manufacturer, the same company I had been with for more than 25 years. By nature, I was cautious and not prone to big risks, but I sensed God asking me to leave that job. At first, I pushed that thought aside, yet the conviction grew stronger until circumstances at work made staying increasingly difficult, and we eventually reached an agreement that worked well for both sides. I walked away from that long-held position, spent the next few months technically unemployed, and, almost by accident, ended up living like a professional triathlete for a summer. That summer, I learned something I had never really faced. When men introduce themselves, they often use their job as their identity, starting with the question, "What do you do?" For the first time in my life, I didn't have an answer to that question. And as the days passed, I felt more and more like my life was unraveling until, at my lowest point, sitting alone in my quiet house and wallowing in self-pity, God gently reminded me who I truly was, a child of God. In that moment, I cried out partly to myself, "What are you doing?" And God met me there, reshaping the direction of my life in an instant and restoring my perspective on who I am in Him. Isn't it great how God works? That fall, Mitchell called again and asked if I would like to come work for Run for God. By then, I had decided to step away from traditional employment for a season to write a book. But the opportunity to serve in a ministry setting was too compelling for me to ignore. So I said yes. Isn't it great how God works? A little over a year into that work, I decided to sit down and take a serious look at my finances, assuming I must have been spending far more than I was bringing in since my new income was less than a third of what it had been. I compared my current bank balance to the balance exactly 1 year earlier and discovered that the difference was only $500, which felt like God whispering, "I've got you right where I want you." About an hour later, I stopped by Mitchell's house, and as I walked into his office, he said, "I wish I had known you were coming. I just put a check in the mail to you for $500. And that unexpected gift felt like God's exclamation point on what He had already shown me an hour prior. Isn't it great how God works? In the years that followed, through the pandemic and into the season when Run for God merged with Upward Sports, God continued to show His faithfulness again and again. Time after time, He sent confirming nudges that I was right in the center of His will, and there are many more stories that could be told along those lines. Isn't it great how God works? Now, it seems God is leading me into a new direction. My full-time employment with Upward will have ended by the time these words are heard, and while I have no idea what I'll be doing a year from now, that uncertainty does not trouble me. What matters most is remaining faithful to His call on my life, whatever shape that call takes, because the same God who has provided for the past 60 years will continue to provide in the days ahead. Isn't it great how God works? Looking back, I see that every start line, every finish, every detour, and every divine appointment was part of God's training plan for my life. He's been shaping endurance in more than just my legs. He's been building it in my faith. As I look ahead to whatever comes next, I do so with peace, knowing the course has already been marked out by a faithful God. The details may change, but the outcome is certain. He's still at work. And isn't it great how God works? Yeah, I know God's not done with me yet, but He's closed a ton of doors in the last 5 years for me. It's really strange. He obviously has something that He wants to get my full attention about.
It'll be interesting to see where the next door is opening for you. So
yeah. Well, and if you're wondering, I am going to work part-time for Upward for a little while, at least. I want to finish up some things that we actually started a while back, helping to provide some of that content that you were talking about earlier, and being available to answer some questions too for folks that have coaching questions. So if you got a coaching question, now might be a really good time for you to ask it. But yeah, I'm amazed at what God has done in and around my life. If you'd known me a couple of decades ago, or more, 3 or 4 decades ago, you probably wouldn't recognize me. I remember at one time, I had a real, let's just say my language was not very professional. And I struggled with that in a mighty way when I came back to God after being saved when I was young, going to college and kind of getting away from it, and then getting back to God while I was in college. I struggled with that in a mighty way. And, but He has done a number on me, and man, He has blessed me way beyond anything I deserve. That story about the bank account thing, that just gives me goosebumps. I've told it, I don't know how many times, and it gives me goosebumps every time, because, the way God makes a point with you is really something special. So, anyway, let's talk about the direction of Upward Running going forward. Of course, you talked before about the Kind of Fast podcast. It's out there. It's going to continue in its current format, right?
Yeah, it's different podcasts altogether than what you and Mitchell have done historically. We wanted something that would support the Upward Running program and have a lighthearted, female-led podcast out there for our listeners to take in on a weekly basis. And so that and its current format will continue on a weekly basis going forward. Certainly not trying to recreate anything that you and Mitchell have done in the past. It wouldn't be authentic to us to try to do that. So that one is one that's meant to be public facing, meant to get people interested in what Upward Running is doing while providing news. And we do a segment that's called What Does That Even Mean? So kind of breaks down some terms that are a lot of us longtime runners know very easily. But if you're just getting into the sport, you're like, what is a fartlek, or what is tempo pace, or, things like that. We try to break down some of those things. And then we go into a deep dive on a weekly basis into a topic that we think runners or walkers would find interesting there. So that podcast will continue on that one.
So will there be a new and different podcast than this one?
Yeah, so the Upward Running podcast as it currently exists, I believe this will be our last one in the public forum that it's out there. Moving forward, we kind of look at this as, let me talk about what curriculum will look like on a 7 days a week standpoint under Upward Running. So the idea here is that you would have some type of curriculum to come back to the app if you're an individual every day of the week. So we're adding value 7 days a week to what you are paying for as a member there. So Mondays historically has been the Upward Running podcast. Moving forward, it'll be a behind the login podcast called The Voice of the Run Club. And this is inspired, the name of that, it's inspired by you, Dean. We're talking recently about some of the transition as it relates to you and Mitchell, and then what that means with Claire and my somewhat involvement. By the way, I do many other things here at Upward Sports. I'm not the new Upward Running director or anything like that. I am here to help where I can, and I am a runner myself as well, which has a little bit of an interesting twist here. But the idea is that we are talking to people that are in the run club on a weekly basis, and in doing that, we understand people from all parts of the pack. Dean, you're a front runner in the pack always. Like you noted, you win a medal almost every time or an award of some type almost every time you toe the line. And honestly, from an age group standpoint, I probably do the same, not quite as frequently, but nearly as frequently as you as well. But we serve the purpose of everyone in the pack, from Shannon Coker, like you just talked about in your favorite story, to Dean Thompson, who's winning the race in some cases. We serve all of those. And so we want to tell the stories of the people that are in the run club on a weekly basis. And so from that, you as a run club member will get to know your fellow run club members on a far deeper level than anything you see in kind of the social feed that we have out there. And they'll tell their story. There might be some minimal coaching that goes on throughout that conversation as well. So you'll be able to take things that you hear from them or that they're getting coached up on and apply that to your own life. And I think it'd just be a great way that people get to know each other, people get to know their stories, and get to expand on that. So that'll be on Monday. On Tuesdays, historically, we've released a devotion to the people that are in the run club. That's been in text form only. In the not so distant future, we will have an audio version of that as well. So if you take off on your walk or run that day and you want to listen to the devotion, you'll be able to do that from the app in the not so distant future. Wednesday, today is some type of running curriculum. So what can you learn about from the running and walking training that we have out there? You guys have developed great content over the years. That comes out on Wednesday, and that's only been in text form today. We'll have that in audio form here pretty soon. On Thursdays, you have historically done Thursday Night Live. So it's a way for people to interact with a coach. You have a topic that you bring up for the day, and then you answer questions as you can in the Thursday Night Live format. Well, we're not going to have a full-time coach on staff immediately, although I think we will in time. We're going to have you step in and still handle all the coaching questions that come up from our members as they come up. But we're going to install a new feature, which will be a chatting feature where people can reach out to you on Thursdays and get an answer to the unique and individual questions that they might have about their running journey. So I got this shin thing. What do you think I should do? My training plan currently is set to end April 4th, but the race I really want to do is April 11th. What does that mean to my training? I want to run a Boston qualifying time in the next 5 years. What are the steps I need to be doing today to get me there? Or I am just starting in this running journey and you're telling me I got to run 20 minutes here in 8 weeks? How is that possible? So ask away in a chat type format where you can go back and forth with them while still working on some other things, honestly, and answer all their questions. So we're gonna install that, and I think in time we're gonna be able to bring like the coaching conversation piece back. I don't know what form or format that is going to be in the future, but I believe that will still be a Thursday curriculum type in time. So that takes us to Thursday. All right, what's Friday? Friday
Kind of fast.
Our Kind of Fast podcast. So the newest release of the Kind of Fast podcast will be available to be listened to. Saturday is our Dean's Thoughts. And so I don't know exactly if we'll call it Dean's Thoughts forever, but I kind of see it maybe as a coach's thoughts. This one written by Dean Thompson. You've written how many of those?
I don't know, 400 or so, 500.
We're talking about years of content there that is written by a very good writer, Dean Thompson. And so one of the projects you're going to work on in this next little interim place here is making sure that we got the text of all that accurately captured and then record all the audio pieces of that so that, again, if you're running and walking on a Saturday, you can hear Dean Thompson in one of his Dean's thoughts over the years. And that takes us to Sunday. We're going to have a new audio piece called Scripture Sunday that'll start sometime in February when we're able to release that. And that'll be an audio form where Les Neely, who's here on staff with us, is going to take a section of the Bible. It might be a whole chapter. It could be a portion of a chapter of the Bible. He's going to read through that. No frills, just what does the Bible say there? And then he's going to give about 5 minutes or less of his thoughts on that. Who's Les Neely? He's a former missionary to Africa for a number of years. He is a guy that does a Bible study in nursing homes today. I find him to be a great teacher, and so I've asked him to step in and help with that as another curriculum type in the future. And he is really excited about bringing that to our Run Club members in the future. And so that's how it'll look. Every day when you show up, we should be providing you some type of content or some type of access to a coach, and all of those pieces of content should be in audio form. How quickly can we get there in full? I'm not exactly sure, but that's the vision moving forward.
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah. Well, let's address kind of an elephant in the room, because I know there's some folks out there who probably listen to this and maybe were not happy about the Upward Running Club Facebook page going away. And it did just recently. Do you want to say anything to folks about kind of what you're thinking about that? What happened and what the plan is going forward?
Sure. This has been discussed for several years now. Going back to the beginning of the Upward Running and Run for God merger, the thought was that Upward Running, as it's named now, used to be Run for God, provides a few different things. Content, like we just talked about, 7 days of content there. Training plans certainly help you get to your fitness journey out there. Ministry content as part of that, and social, the ability to interact with others virtually or in a church setting, the ability to socially connect with other people that are like-minded. And so we like to say that's where faith and fitness meet, and that's where runners will connect on that. And so we'd always planned on shutting that down. That the timing of it is just what it is when it happened at this time. It's wasn't a new idea with Mitchell stepping away. We just executed the idea that was there all along. And as a result, I would say the Run Club social has picked up significantly since we've done that. So the people that were members, some of them, I'm thinking, Madonna Barker as one, Greg, Chance, is that his name, that is out there? They were posting in 2 different places. Now they can just post in one and get those interactions. And so for a long time, we held off on doing it because we didn't think that the social feed was quality enough to replace the Facebook page. We believe that it is good enough for that now. So if you haven't joined and you miss the interaction that was the Facebook page in the past, I'd say join us over on the Upward Run Club. We still got it going. The social feed is alive and popping right now.
Yeah, that's great. And it does. I mean, it's posting just like Facebook. It's just it's within its own group. And it's pretty good. Well, as I said, you're good at listening to feedback. And one of the ways you've proved that over the years is that several years ago, you took on the project of kind of changing the direction of Upward Sports. Upward Sports had been in a kind of a downward trajectory for quite some time and was losing folks each year. And that all turned around based on some things that I know that you were heading up at the time. So you want to talk about that and then maybe talk about how that might affect Upward Running going forward.
Yeah. 2018 comes, and Kaz McCaslin, as we've already mentioned today, two shout outs to Kaz today, is no longer with the company basically. And we had been on an 8-year decline at that point. It eventually ended up being a 10-year decline all the way to the pandemic is what it was. And at times we were in almost free fall decline, something like 15% different drop in number of players doing on a year-to-year basis. And it wasn't going to be sustainable that much longer. I remember we hired a consultant. His name was Bill Robinson. He came in and he was going to take us through this design thinking methodology to help us reimagine what Upward could be to try to stay sustainable moving forward. And Bill Palmer, the interim at the time executive director, I sat in with the consultant and Bill, and within the first 5 minutes, Bill Palmer tells Bill Robinson, we got like 18 to 24 months to figure this thing out, or I don't know what the future of Upward Sports is going to be. And so when you hear that, it's like, okay, this is no joke. This is for real. We got to figure this thing out. And so what we did was we did some design thinking practices to try to imagine what could Upward look like in the future. As a result of that, we instituted a new market research policy. And so my first department that I led here was our market research department. And so we go out and we talk to churches across the country, both Upward partners and non-Upward partners, and we try to get a pulse on what's working, what's not, what we can improve, where are people going, and how can we get there by the time you're trying to get there so we can continue to serve you. All of this to promote the discovery of Jesus through sports. If Upward doesn't exist anymore, there's 225,000 kids that play Upward across the country right now. That is a huge vacuum of gospel conversations that aren't happening across the country if we aren't a part of this. So it was a must, a have to at that point that we had to get this thing turned around. So we listened to people, we had ideas, we iterated on it, and ultimately, what I like to say is we had a league in a box, and you could buy the box or not buy the box, but it was the only box we had to sell, and you couldn't change anything in the box. So now everything's a la carte. We used to be our own distribution center ourselves, so we would procure uniforms overseas, bring them into our warehouse, cross our fingers and hope we didn't run out of them or any certain sizes of them or anything like that. And at times we weren't very good at projecting some of those things. And so we have moved that to a vendor who produces our uniforms and packs and ships that for us. And so if they ever run out of jerseys or shorts, they go across to the other side of the factory and they make some more and they put them in the box, and we keep moving on. And so as a result of that, we just finished our 4th straight year of growth. We're in a great place. We're very sustainable. We continue to move forward as a ministry. We can look at new opportunities like adult running and walking as something we want to take on because we're not in crisis mode around here anymore. And so I think when I retire one of these days, the thing I probably will be most proud of in my entire time as a worker will be the time where it was very tough around here and we didn't know what was going to happen, but we worked with great people and we listened to the right people and we seeked God's will in it all, and in turn Upward was able to turn the corner and start improving again. So you got the old bell curve, and we got on the bottom side of that bell curve, and very, very few companies are able to turn it around again. And so happy and thankful that we have been able to do that as an organization.
Amen. So I guess a lot of what happens going forward is going to depend on that feedback. And so what's really important about that is if you're listening to this, you're part of the Run Club, your feedback matters. And so don't be afraid to speak up, right? I mean, because because you listen, and that's how you change things is you listen to the folks and feedback that folks have, right?
No doubt. I mean, all the way to the point, and this is harder to do on the individual side than it is on the church side, but we record on the Upward Sports side of things exactly what people say when they give us feedback, exactly when they gave it, what form they gave it, what church they go to, all those types of things, so that when we go and we look at, this as a super basic example, this jersey they say is too long. It wears like a dress, right? That maybe there's been some comments like that in the past, and really, it's designed to be tucked in, but kids don't like to tuck their shirts in, as an example. And so when we go into the next year project and we go, all right, what are we doing different on the jerseys this year? I read every single piece of feedback that we got last year and any other ones that we haven't resolved in the past. I read every one and we make the best decision we can based on that feedback. And then when we make the change, we go back to those individual people. So Dean, if you'd give me the feedback that the jersey was too long and they looked like dresses, we would have one of our reps that you would work with call you up and go, hey, Dean, I know on March 15th last year, you told me that these shirts wear too long, they look like a dress, and people want to wear them out. And I'm happy to say that the new jerseys shipping out as of today are right size fit, and you can wear them out and all those type of things. And I just want to say thank you for that feedback. We do that every day at Upward Sports. And so on the Upward Running side, the feedback, incredibly important. And we will do the same thing as we make decisions at Upward Running in the future. What are people asking for? What are we providing? How can we provide a better experience? How can we do continuous improvement at all times? And so much of that is going to come from our own members and their own ideas there.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Well, so do you plan on keeping the current training plans? Do you still plan on doing the Couch to Marathon program and the 5K challenge and all of that?
Yes, and yes. All that, no plan changes on any of those types of things. And if we ever want to add additional training, not to say that changes training per se. I mean, I think we should always be looking at our training plans and is it the best information out there? Is there new coaches that have different opinions on things, and how can we implement that, especially on the advanced side of training? Like what's the best way we can put together training? We should always be doing that. But in general, the training plans will stay largely the same, and we might bring you back in to help consult on some things if it's past this little interim time here, and we do want to add some new training plans. But by and large, no real change there. The 5K challenge, if that's what you are, that's what you've known in the past. Like, I don't see that changing at all. Like, we got the books, we got the videos, we got the training. Like, let's roll. That's good to go.
3,000 to 4,000 churches, 400,000 people or so that have done it over the years. It probably works. But ever since the pandemic, the churches haven't done a lot of 5K challenge groups. I hope to see that happening where that's an increase in the number of churches that take that on. Of course, you mentioned that earlier. And I think that could be a real big focus because at one time that's what drove all of it was the folks in the churches doing the groups. So
it's been a little head scratching why it hasn't taken off yet, and maybe we just haven't got the right wording, and we haven't casted the vision better at this point to get that out there. But certainly, run clubs in the country are on the rise, all in every community and every city across the country. And so why couldn't these be small versions of run clubs, which is basically saying, let's get together in community with like-minded people and do something that we all are trying to do together. And so that's what the idea is there.
Amen. Well, Travis, I appreciate you, the Upward team. This whole last couple of years has been, I have grown personally as a result. As I grow older, I continue to get slower as a runner, but I continue to grow spiritually, and that's what really counts. And so I appreciate the things that have happened over the last couple of years that have made me grow. Again, you mentioned earlier, I've got a lot of awards. I got some of them sitting behind me right here that are things that I've accumulated over the years. And it's really, really cool to have all of those awards. But you know what ultimately happens with those things? Ultimately, they're going to get thrown away, because at some point in time, I'm going to be gone from this earth. I am sure my kids and my grandkids don't want to keep my running awards. They're going to get thrown in the trash. But the Bible says that, a physical crown is perishable. That's what that is. All of those things, they're physical crowns. They're perishable crowns. But I'm working for that imperishable crown that Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 9:25. The one that is never going to tarnish, that never is thrown away, because I'll be wearing it for the rest of my life in eternity. And I hope that this podcast, which has gone uninterrupted for nearly 6 years, we have not missed a week in nearly 6 years. And I pray that, for those people that are listening, that have listened, it's been uplifting. I hope it's drawn you closer to God. And although this podcast may be going away, the spirit behind it is not. We've never done a podcast before. I mentioned to you earlier, we've never done a podcast before that we didn't pray that God would fill us with his words before we did that podcast. And I hope that everybody felt that. And that's my parting words, I would say, would be, listen, Upward's got the Upward mission hasn't changed. The heart is still there. And so make sure that you understand that. If you're thinking anything other than that, please understand that heart is still there in the same way, no matter what may change or may not change. So, you have any last words, Travis?
No, I appreciate you, and I appreciate Mitchell and Holly, who worked with us as well. And it's an interesting time where we are trying to figure out some things as we go. We hope that we can add value to the runners who have entrusted us with their faith and fitness journey. Moving forward, we hope that we can shine the light of Christ to people who aren't currently seeing it. We hope that, like you talked about in your journey, people stray away but come back. We hope that there's situations like that in the future. But we're going to trust God throughout all of it and look to him and his direction and his will through it all. But in the end, this has been a great podcast. I've been a weekly listener for 3 or 4 years, however long since the first time I met you guys on all this. I have personally grown, and there's certain isms that you say and that Mitchell has said that I'm sure that I will continue to reflect on over the years. It's been a great journey, and I think the future is still bright for us, and I hope people will come along for the journey on that.
100%. And for the last time on this podcast, may God bless every step of every run and or walk. Go out there and shine your light.
For more information about Upward Running, visit upwardrunning.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There is nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.